Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson were two, I think, of the first folks in the kind of more conservative right movement to interview the Tates, particularly Andrew Tate, at the time when they were under house arrest in Romania. I think it was Tucker Carlson that went over first to Romania, sat down with him. This was shortly after his departure from Fox News. Candace Owens followed shortly, I think a month or two later, and sat down with Andrew Tate for a big interview. In the interview with Tucker Carlson, Andrew Tate, I think, addresses, you could say, his detractors to Tucker. And I want to get your thoughts on this clip from that interview with Tucker Carlson.
Are you charged with?
That's a really good question. I'm charged with being the head of an organized criminal group, which is in charge of recruiting girls to make TikTok videos to steal the money from the TikTok views.
Recruiting girls to make TikTok videos and stealing the money. So it's really a financial crime?
First of all, just curious your take on that. Is that what he's charged with, the head of a crime group, to make girls do TikTok and take money?
No. He's charged with forming an organized crime group to sex traffic women, and he's charged with rape.
In Romania?
Yes.
It's very interesting because the girls who they've identified to add to the file are saying that we're not victims of anything and this isn't true. But the state believes it's true, and the state thinks that I, as a 35-year-old man, woke up. I was already extremely financially successful. I was already a father. I was already very well known. I had no financial motivation. I have no criminal record. It's not my personality profile, but I woke up at the age of 35 and decided to make girls do TikTok to enrich myself with the pennies that I would earn from TikTok views.
He's saying the victims have already said that they're not victims, and then why would I want to make pennies off of TikTok videos?
Well, he's not charged with stealing money from TikTok. So that's just a false premise. But the other thing is he kind of says, well, I woke up one day and just wanted to do this. Andrew Tate himself and Tristan Tate have repeated many times that they made their first $1 million on their OnlyFans or webcam empire. He said that. He's described being destitute and desperate for money, and that he was looking around and saying, what are my assets? I have hot girlfriends. Attractive women are absolutely assets. It's literally what he said. And that he discovered what webcam was and thought, I'll put these women on webcam. And that's how he built his webcam empire, as he called it. He claimed to, at one point, have 75 women on webcam. And that's how he made his millions. So here he's saying, I was already rich. Why do I need to do that? That's literally what he says to the women over and over again, and he teaches the men to say. I'll say to them, I don't want them to accuse me of tricking them or pressuring them. So I'll always say, I'm already rich. I don't need you to do OnlyFans. It's only if you want to. That's a line he and Tristan repeatedly use. It's all part of the manipulation. And the truth is, he made his money from OnlyFans. That's how he made his money, and he got famous from bragging about it.
Then Tucker goes on and tries to clarify and said, well, I think in the United States, we all think that you're charged with human trafficking, Andrew. What's the truth?
So in the United States, I think the belief is that you were charged with human trafficking.
Yeah, that's human trafficking, because what you do is you force a girl to work against her will for financial gain. That's human trafficking. And their justification for this is that girls do TikTok. Some girls I know who they found who say they're not victims have TikTok accounts.
How do you force someone to do TikTok videos?
I guess the prosecutor is going to have to explain that, isn't he? It's a very interesting scenario I'm in, and I'm inside of Romania, so I have to show a degree of respect to the Romanian judicial system, and I have to show a degree of respect to the situation I'm in. But the overall charge is that there's an organized criminal group. There's a group of us. I'm the head of it. My brother is below me, and we use the lover boy method to convince women to do TikTok videos to make money so that we can steal the TikTok money.
So there's no, just to be clear, you are not accused of pandering, of pimping, of forcing women to have sex with anybody.
No, not forcing them to have sex, not restraining their movement.
So Tucker Carlson says, so you're not charged with pandering or pimping or forcing people to have sex. What are your thoughts on that?
That's true, but sex trafficking also encompasses any commercial sex act, which includes pornography.
Not stopping them from living a full life, but the fact that we are somehow convincing them to have TikTok. Very interesting. I don't think...
But there's no actual... I'm asking you this because I do think it's a widespread belief that you were accused of pimping.
Yeah, no, that's nothing to do with any of this case. Absolutely nothing.
Tucker Carlson clarifies and says, well, I do think many people think you were accused of pimping. And then this is what Andrew says in response to that.
The crime in itself of human trafficking is a unique one because they can ignore the statement of the victim. So the girls have come forward and said, this is insane. You've just picked us because we're near Andrew and we're his friends. But the whole idea of the crime is they can say that she's brainwashed, right? She's under duress. So you can ignore her statement. State says she's a victim, regardless of the fact that she says she's not a victim. So it's very interesting because the difference between sex and rape is consent, right?
Right.
But they remove all of that. They're like, nope, you're a victim. No matter what you say, we're deciding you're a victim. And they've chosen them. And of course, these girls do nothing pornographic. They've never had sex with anyone, nothing to do with that. So they've picked TikTok.
What are your thoughts?
So a couple things. One, Andrew Tate in his instructional videos to men calls himself a pimp and says that the techniques I'm going to teach you on how to get women to go on OnlyFans and give you all the money are the same techniques you could do for street pimping. So he references street pimping, which would be forcing a woman to engage in prostitution, right? So he's saying, I'm using the same methods. He says, I know street pimps. I'm good friends with street pimps, and it's the same method. So commercial sex, by definition, includes pornography. He describes using these methods that you would use to prostitute a woman to put her on porn, and he calls that pimping. So that's his own description of what he was doing. And then another thing to look at is sort of him talking about ignoring the women's statements. So one, there are some women who say they're not victims, but then there's many women who say they are. So he ignores that. So it's important to recognize that there are women who are absolutely testifying that they are victims and were harmed by Andrew Tate. So even if you exclude the women who are not acknowledging that they're victims at this time, there are still victims. And then the other thing to note is Andrew Tate keeps saying that it's TikTok, right? He keeps harping on this TikTok, but in the remaining case file, they got all kinds of documents regarding bank transfers to the Tate brothers from OnlyFans and MyFreeCams. So those are the two biggest webcam platforms, which Andrew Tate has talked about multiple times in his own videos. And that's the Romanians found money that they received. Why would Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate receive earnings from OnlyFans or MyFreeCams if they themselves don't have an account on that site? If they're not performing in webcam, why would they be receiving money on behalf of other women?
You mentioned there are victims that no longer say that they're victims, or they say we're not victims. You were speaking to that earlier. Why do you think that is?
It is brainwashing. So he mentions brainwashing in a cavalier way, but he's described brainwashing these women. He's described controlling their minds. And we see that with Yasmin and Penkov, who said, I wouldn't leave you even if I found out you were a sex trafficker. We understand when we look at cult dynamics that adults can be brainwashed into doing all kinds of really crazy things against their own interests, hurting themselves, hurting others. We've come to a place in society where we can see that and recognize that. Sex trafficking is a very similar dynamic to cult dynamics. There is this isolation from outside influences, manipulation, this sort of highly charismatic leader that the individuals are told and manipulated to put all their trust in. That becomes their higher belief system. And so they're willing to do anything and everything for that person. That's exactly what happens with sex trafficking. Andrew Tate describes doing that with women, and then we see women experiencing that. One other thing I want to point out is he tries to make light of the TikTok and pennies on the dollar. In the Romanian case, just on behalf of Vivian, who Vivian is his first victim ever, it has now been confirmed that he sex trafficked her as a minor. Just from that victim alone, he made $1.5 million on OnlyFans from her.